everyone, welcome back. I'm Zavia Mukadam, a fee for service planner. Today I want to talk about something I hear all the time, especially when someone is sitting down with me for the first time. They'll all say, I feel behind financially, behind in their careers, or behind compared to friends, colleagues, people they went to school with. And sometimes they don't say it directly, but you can feel it in their conversations. After more than 30 years in financial planning, I can tell you this feeling is incredibly common. And most of the time, it has far more to do with comparisons and expectations than someone's actual financial situation. What's underneath all this? Usually, when someone says they feel behind, they're comparing themselves to someone who seems further ahead. But underneath that, there is something deeper, a fear that they may have made the wrong decisions, that they must have missed an opportunity, or that life isn't unfolding the way it should be. So let's start with this. Feeling behind financially is not a personal failure. It's often just a response to unrealistic expectations and incomplete information. There's an expected life timeline that most people grow up with. This unspoken idea of how life is supposed to go: finish school, start a stable job, start investing early, buy a home, stay on track. But real life rarely follows that path anymore. Careers change, people go back to school, income grows later, debt is higher, housing is more expensive, people take care of family, go through divorce, change industries, start over, and yet we're still measuring ourselves against an outdated timeline. So people feel behind, when in reality, they are navigating a completely different reality. So, when do things start to shift? What I've noticed over the years is that something changes when people actually sit down and go through their finances properly. They learn how things work, they build a realistic plan, they start investing at a level that makes sense for them, and suddenly they realize, I'm not so far behind as I thought. The timeline stops feeling like a verdict and starts feeling like a starting point. Why progress feels slow? One of the reasons people feel stuck is because progress doesn't look very impressive, especially early progress. Learning about investing doesn't create instant results. Understanding tax, debt, and planning, it's slow. But this is the foundation. Before your investments compound, your understanding has to compound. Early progress looks like asking better questions, understanding risk more clearly, reacting less emotionally, making more intentional decisions. And none of that feels dramatic at that time. But over time, it changes everything. The problem with comparison is comparison distorts financial reality. You know everything about your own situation, your stress, your doubts. But with other people, you only see their highlights. You see the house, the vacation, the confidence, but you don't see their debts, their financial stress, family support. Did they have some? The risky decisions they are taking? Or are they even living paycheck to paycheck behind the scenes? I have worked with people who looked completely successful and felt like they were failing. And I've seen the opposite. Some might say, I have $1 million invested, I'm fine. But if they're spending $300,000 a year, they may not be able to support their future they expect. So the real work becomes aligning perception with reality. Why catching up fast backfires is because when people feel behind, they try to speed things up. And that's usually when emotional decisions start creeping in. I've seen cautious investors jump into trends like crypto, market booms, real estate surges, not because it fits their plan, but because they feel like they're running out of time. And most of the time, that leads to mistakes. Progress driven by urgency is fragile. Progress built steadily with understanding is durable. Asking for help, a lot of people hesitate to ask for help. They feel embarrassed. They think they should know more. They're afraid of being judged. But asking for help isn't a failure. It's clarity. It's choosing to understand your options. It's choosing to be intentional instead of reactive. Building confidence is one of the most important lessons. So, one of the important lessons I've learned is that financial confidence isn't something people are born with, it's something you build. Most people already know more than they think. They have pieces of the puzzle. What they're missing is how to fit it all together. Confidence comes from experience, from making decisions, adjusting, and continuing forward. You don't learn your risk tolerance by reading it. You learn by living it through the market's ups and downs. And finally, If you feel behind right now, ask yourself this question: whose expectations am I trying to meet? Because most of the pressure people feel isn't coming from their actual situation, it is coming from comparisons and imagined timelines. But financial lives aren't linear. What feels like delay is often preparation. What feels like uncertainty is often flexibility. And what feels like being behind is often just being early in the progress. There's no single pace you're supposed to follow. If you're learning, asking questions, and making thoughtful decisions, even slowly, you're not behind, you're building. Thank you for listening and see you soon.